then this number, if you add to it, you get X. Well, why should I get a smaller number if I'm multiplying? Now, one would say, okay, well, that's what happens when you have a multiply times a decimal, like less than 0. Okay, fine, less than 0. But that's not less than 0. 1 times 1 theoretically probably shouldn't be less than 1 plus 1, because it's multiplication, not addition. That's what he's saying. That's all. It in and of itself, it fundamentally shows that there's a problem with the math. There's a problem with the rules. Now again, for money and exchanging things and for accounting purposes, that's fine. That's why they made up the rule. But what he's saying is that when you're talking about splitting atoms and changing composition of elements and turning things into other things, that calculation is important. You can't just make something up just because you said so. That's what he's basically saying. See what I'm saying? Let's continue.
I don't know.
Is it bigger than 2?
It would have to be. Anytime action times an action has to increase in volume.
No, but so if 1 times 1 is 2, that would mean
DBD is an idiot, by the way. Like this, I lost a lot of respect for him right here. I thought he was.
At 1.1 times 1.1 would need to be bigger than 2, right?
It would have to be. Why wouldn't it be? It's only the mathematics that they're using, the identity principles, which I call the Jim Crow laws of mathematics. That's the thing that holds them back, because they want to keep things back.
Nobody's talking about that. That's why I put it in the banner, because this guy is a genius. Listen to what this fool just said.
Be bigger than 2, right?
It would have to be. Why wouldn't it be? It's only the mathematics that they're using, the identity principles, which I call the Jim Crow laws of mathematics. That's the thing that holds them back, because they want to keep things back into a balanced place. They want, instead of allowing the expansion that happens with most numbers, they just want to repeat. They just want to get back to
even for a basic simple guy like me. Like, let's just say if I have $1.10 in a stock, okay, and that goes up 1.1%. What is it? $1.10 in a stock, but it goes up 1.1% rate of return in my stock portfolio. What's 1.1 of $1.10?
Look it up on the calculator.
It's $1.21. So for example, so if I get a 1% rate of return,
it's so weird that he's trying to do it this way. He's like making it overly complicated so it makes sense in his head, and he's still getting it wrong. But whatever.
On one, if I do the percentage on the basic 1.1 times 1.1, it's still getting me 1.21. So to me, the basics of the 1 times 1 equals 2, that throws even a regular guy like me off.
Well, you've got to remember, in multiplying volumetrically, you're wrapping things back around.
Right.
Like in a swimming pool, the ripples go out, hit the edge, and then they come back. The returning waves are added to the expanding waves. Each returning wave is going to become multiplied even more. The pressure doesn't just expand out and keep going out, it's coming back. So you have to include the contraction. You have to include the returning wave. So that's why the volumetric would be different. But like even with what you just did, like if I ask you, what's 0.10 times 0.10? 0.10 times 0.10 says 0.001, right?
Right.
But we know that 0.10 is a dime.
Okay.
We know that a dime times a dime, 10 dimes times 10 dimes equals $1, should equal $1.
Not necessarily.
10 times 10.
No, I know what you're doing. But that is a whole number. A dime is still 10 cents. So 10 dimes is $1. So it's not the same in the dollar sense. I see what you're thinking, like 0.1 equals a tenth of $1.
I'm saying there's a problem with their decimal system.
Yeah, but if a dime
this guy's
is
an idiot.
0.1 of $1, let's simplify it, right? But if you tell me, give me 10 of 0.1s, that equals 1. So that means I got 10 dimes. But if you do 0.1 times 0.1, then you get 0.01, right?
0.01.
Yeah, but that's a difference. So to me, the basics of the math, when you went there,
that doesn't go off to you. That doesn't seem off. That if this,
he's like, you don't see that problem. that doesn't. The alarm bells aren't going off.
maths was, if you turn it into physical things, that's what I'm saying. Let's turn it. The problem with our math is they've allowed it to be all imaginary. It does not have any physical resemblance. It's all fiat, where it should be.
No, but I just do
measuring
investment.
reality.
The way I look at it is to say, what's 0.1%?
The way I look at it, motherfucker, who are you? This guy is a genius, and he's telling you that you're wrong.
The equivalent of I feel like.
Absolutely. Let's continue.
And of, a penny. What's 0.1% of a penny?
What's the value of a penny?
What's 0.1% of a dime? It's a penny, right? It gets smaller, right? So that's I don't look at it from the physics.
Wait a minute, 10% of a penny of a dime would be a penny.
That's right.
10%.
So 0.1 is 10%, right? So if you go to the investment side, the argument of 1 times 1 in investment, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance, it stops right there. But you're going out there and saying 1 times 1 equals 2. And, that's...
We're saying that since our economics are still based on this linear flat plane geometry,
Right.
You can still use the 1 times 1 equaling 1 to perform their economic growth and their economic reactions. But if you're dealing with universal interactions, our money may go out linearly and we may measure it on a flat plane. But as far as the universe behaving, how energy behaves, energy curves and wraps back around itself. Energy doesn't follow a linear path. And all of the stuff we're talking about in physics and science is about energy. We're not talking about a fiat system where they can have arbitrary rules for the money, that anything can happen with the numbers. Something times nothing can equal nothing and violate conservation of energies if you're saying 1 times 0, or you can multiply by 0. But if you divide by 0, it creates an infinity, and division is supposed to be the inverse operation of multiplication. So what you're supposed to be able to do multiplying, you're able to reverse that with division. So if you cannot divide by 0, then you cannot multiply by 0. All of their rules that they break so that their economic pathway can remain consistent. You want to do that, do that. But if you're talking about saving our planet, you're talking about how the universe behaves and how the energy of the ether behaves, then there's very specific associations to the numbers. Each number is alive. Each number has value. It's not imaginary. It's not intangible. It is going to have an effect. So we have to multiply it according to how the universe does it.
Okay. So I look at it more from the investment side, the math side, the financial.
So PBD wasn't done. He wasn't satisfied with actually, Broken Blade, were you satisfied with that explanation? I mean, did it at least say, oh, okay, all right, there's an angle here that I wasn't looking at? I mean, do you feel like he's full of shit? And there's, again, no wrong answer.
I don't feel like he's full of it. He did bring up a interesting point, though, another way of considering 1 times 1 that I do think is apt. It's it's like I guess like a pool of water.
Mm-hmm.
Measuring like the effect, like dropping 1 stone in, you have the ripple out, then the ripple back. It'd be the same amount of effect.
Mm-hmm. But you're multiplying. Like, think about it. Like, if you're, not to say, well, here's what I'll say. We don't have to overcomplicate this. Like, I think we're trying to overcomplicate this. Like I said, 1 plus, meaning an addition, right?
Yeah.
Like addition, I'm adding something. Adding, subtracting, right? If I'm taking something away or I'm adding something, right? So I have 1. I have a single unit and I'm going to add it. So plus 1. 1 unit plus 1 unit is 2 units. 1, 2, right?
Yeah.
Now, multiplication is bigger than addition, right? If I were to take the same numbers and add them, and I were to take the same exact numbers and multiply them, generally the number that I'm multiplying is going to be larger, correct?
Yeah.
Right? So if I say 2 plus 3 is 5, but 2 times 3 is 6. Got me? Like, every time I'm multiplying, it's a bigger number. So if I add 1 plus 1 and get 2, then why should I logically think that 1 plus 1 times 1 should be less than it would if I added these two in the physical world? if I say 1 plus 1 is 2, and generally multiplication will give you a higher number than addition, and I say 1 times 1 is 1, why would 1 times 1 be less than 1 plus 1, is what he's saying. In the fundamental way you're describing it, it means that the math is wrong. It's incorrect. They just made the rule up because it was the one thing that made it fit. It's lazy, is what it is. It's just because I said so. Again, I'm gonna go one more time. One unit plus another unit is 2 units plus, right? Let's go bigger than that. 4 plus 4. 4 plus 4 is 8, right? 4 plus 4 is 8. But 4 times 4 is 16. 3 plus 3 is 6, but 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. So if it's 1 plus 1 is 2, why would 1 times 1 just be 1? It's a negative. Why would it be less than 2? We're multiplying, not dividing. You see what I'm saying? You don't see what I'm saying. Say you don't. It's okay if you don't.
No, conceptually,
Conceptually, I mean, conceptually, what he's saying is that conceptually, it's not what they said, though. Like if addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are the act that you say that it is, then this number, if you add to it, you get X. Well, why should I get a smaller number if I'm multiplying? Now, one would say, okay, well, that's what happens when you have a multiply times a decibel, like less than 0. Okay, fine, less than 0. But that's not less than 0. 1 times 1 theoretically probably shouldn't be less than 1 plus 1 because it's multiplication, not addition. That's what he's saying. That's all. It in and of itself, it fundamentally shows that there's a problem with the math. There's a problem with the rules. Now again, for money and exchanging things and for accounting purposes, that's fine. That's why they made up the rule. But what he's saying is that when you're talking about splitting atoms and changing composition of elements and turning things into other things, that calculation is important. You can't just make something up just because you said so. That's what he's basically saying. And so, sure, 1 times 1 is 1. That's what your calculator is going to say, and that's what your teacher is going to say, and that's what this professor is going to say, so on and so forth. But if I actually just say it out loud, it doesn't make any sense. It fundamentally doesn't make any sense. Like, it really doesn't. Again, we'll go backwards with it. 4 plus 4 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2, or 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. It's the same. 1 plus 1 is 2, but 1 times 1 is 1? Why?